Welcome, my friends, to another edition of the Wellness Talk podcast. I am George Batista, your host and your wellness advocate. Today's discussion is going to be on the body's built-in barriers, the protection that your body has to help to protect you from all different types of toxins and pathogens. Now, we all know there's a gut barrier that's talked about all the time, right? We know there's tight junctions. You've heard of leaky gut. And when that gut barrier is penetrated, you could end up with leaky gut and undigested proteins that end up in your bloodstream, causing all different types of problems. You have barriers also in your lungs to help protect you and trap pathogens and things like that. But did you know that your brain also has a built-in shield? It's called the blood-brain barrier. Today's discussion is going to be on the blood-brain barrier. What is it? What does it do? What affects the blood-brain barrier? And how can we keep the blood-brain barrier integrity intact? That's going to be our main discussion today, and it's going to be from a piece from Wellness Resources entitled Strengthen Your Blood-Brain Barrier for Sharp Thinking and Healthy Aging. So obviously, we want to age gracefully, as we always talk about, and that includes healthy aging in your brain. And one of the ways to do that is to protect your blood-brain barrier, because again, it's that barrier that is designed to help resist certain toxins. It's got a door that opens and closes and lets things come in that are needed. So we're going to discuss exactly how to keep it functioning properly. So that's going to be our first piece today. And then the second piece is going to be on brand new news that just came out a couple of weeks ago. And I've talked about this as well. I've talked about nutrition in terms of why nutrition isn't taught in medical schools, right? What if doctors actually were taught nutrition in medical schools? I did a whole podcast on that in terms of what would happen if doctors were actually taught about nutrition. How would the health system change? Well, is it actually happening? Are we actually seeing the tide turning in terms of nutrition? Texas is starting out with that with some bills that are coming out regarding nutrition and medical schools and continuing education and things like that. So we're going to go over that. And we'll talk about exactly what Texas is doing. And it's going to be interesting to see if that starts to spread out in other states. So good news on that. And hopefully we see something happening. So that's what our discussions are going to be today. Of course, go to georgebatista.com and make sure you check out everything that we talk about, including all these articles there. If you want to follow along, you can do so. You can watch this program and you can listen to this program as well. And make sure you like, share, and subscribe as always, because it helps us grow as a show. All right, guys. So before we get started, let's talk about our friends at Wellness Resources. Wellness Resources formulates the most superior quality nutritional supplements that deliver the most absorbable nutrients in optimal amounts to make a true difference in your health. For 40 years, this family-owned and operated supplement company has used only the highest quality nutrients, no chemical additives, the same nutrient forms used in clinical research, and enough of the nutrients to be beneficial. This attention to quality makes a significant difference in the health results you will see and feel. Now, you guys know I am a fanatic about the quality of supplements that I use. And that's why I've been using Wellness Resources supplements now for over 17 years, and I love them. Discover how Wellness Resources supplements can help you feel energized and well. Check them out at myvitaminresource.com. Again, that's myvitaminresource.com. Check out Wellness Resources supplements today. Okay, so let's get started on our discussion today. And in thinking about the blood-brain barrier, the first question we have to ask is, what is it? For those of you who are not familiar with it. So think of the blood-brain barrier as a shield or an elite security system that surrounds your brain. And its job is to be very selective in what it lets in and what it keeps out. So for example, its job is to let in any nutrients that are fat soluble that are designed to support the brain's health. So if you think about it, any nutrients that support cognition, mood, focus, brain stability, or just overall brain health. But its job is also to keep out anything that's harmful to the brain. So it's got this system that is, again, selective and designed to let certain things in and keep certain things out. Now, the blood-brain barrier is vascular in nature, and it's actually made up of tight junctions. And again, like I've talked about in the past, similar to the type of tight junctions in your intestines, right? That, again, that are tight, but if they loosen up, eventually what happens, you can eventually have undigested proteins that can leak out into the blood and cause inflammation in different parts of the body, eventually leading to all different types of autoimmune problems, issues like that. Well, it's the same thing with the blood-brain barrier. If those junctions weaken, it could actually let in things that are not supposed to be in the brain, which obviously lead to cognitive problems, and all different types of inflammation in the brain and things like that. So that's essentially what the blood-brain barrier is and what it does for the most part. Now, it also allows for the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the brain, and it also helps to remove amyloid beta and tau proteins along with potential toxins. And this is how it works in close conjunction with the glial cells. Now, the glial cells are those cells that are responsible for the repair of the brain. And it also works with the glymphatic system, which is the waste removal process of the brain. So if you think about it, it's this beautiful system that is designed to make sure that the right things come in, the wrong things stay out, and again, works with your cleanup system to make sure that anything that needs to be removed is removed. Now, what are the things that can break down the blood-brain barrier? So obviously, in any inflammatory compounds, such as toxins that can cross into the blood-brain barrier, are tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, reactive oxygen species, prostaglandin series 2, and other things can all actually lead to blood-brain barrier permeability. Also, neurotoxic compounds can enter the brain and cause free radical production, cause neuroinflammation, and mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, that's a problem because you have to remember that the brain is sucking up a lot of energy in your body, right? Your brain needs a lot of energy just to function. It uses a lot of mitochondria. If you have a disruption in the blood-brain barrier, a breakdown, you actually can affect the mitochondria, and therefore your brain literally can get tired, which can eventually lead to mental fatigue, which can lead to physical fatigue, right? That's a big problem because then that's going to lead to overall problems with mental clarity, with mood, with stress tolerance, circadian rhythms, just all different types of things. So obviously keeping this barrier tight and working optimally is the key. So let's look at some of the factors, the most common factors that can actually lead to disruption of the blood-brain barrier. The first one is the standard American diet. That goes without saying, right? So obviously if you're eating high fat, high sugar diets, processed foods, all these things can lead to, problems, especially the omega-6 fatty acids, right? The arachidonic acid from the vegetable oils, corn oil, canola, safflower, sunflower oils. All those things can lead to disruption of the blood-brain barrier. They can also promote excess production of what's called prostaglandin series 2 that promotes inflammatory reactions. Now, just on the flip side, in terms of prostaglandins, you may have heard of prostaglandins when I talked about in previous shows. I've talked about omega-3s. So omega-3s, the good omega-3s actually produce prostaglandin series 1 and 3, which are anti-inflammatory. Prostaglandin series 2 is the inflammatory portion. So just so you can see that distinction. Now, the problem with unhealthy diets is this. When you have an unhealthy diet, it can lead to intestinal permeability. We know that, leaky gut. But remember, we have this 2-lane highway that goes from the gut to the brain to the gut. But more signals go from the gut to the brain. That's key because if you have intestinal permeability, this can allow toxins and inflammatory molecules to travel through the circulatory system and the vagus nerve, eventually leading to the blood-brain barrier and actually starting to cause a degradation and eventually can make their way into the brain. Big problem. So diet is key. That's the first thing you got to take a look at. Some other things that can, cause a breakdown as well. Obviously, age. As you age, things break down. We know that when you're 18, 25, 30 years old, even 35 years old, you can spring up without a problem. Your body can snap back with no issues. But once you start to hit 40, I know, trust me, once you start to hit 40, this is where things start to slow down a little bit, okay? So age can be a factor here. Animal studies show that aging reduces tight junctions, proteins, and causes degeneration of other blood-brain barrier tissues, increasing permeability. Also, declines in estrogen and testosterone also affect blood-brain barrier permeability. So now we have age, and then we have the hormone production. Those can also lead to problems. Next, exercise. Now, this is a double-edged sword because if you are over-exercising, right, your exercise is overly intense, that can actually lead to inflammation, and studies show that can actually also lead to deterioration. But if you are exercising on a regular basis and you are balancing it, so in other words, if you're exercising 3, 4, 5 times a week, you're doing moderate to intense exercise that's actually helping your body, then that actually helps to activate anti-inflammatory pathways to keep things tight. So exercising on a regular basis, but exercising in a smart way actually helps to keep the blood-brain barrier intact. Next, concussions. This is where we start to get into, let's say, sports, whether it's football, soccer, hockey, or even boxing. Obviously, lots of concussions can happen, especially in football. We've heard about that in the last few years, but it could also be an accident. Let's say you're in an accident, God forbid, or you hit your head or something like that. That can cause a concussion. Well, there's been studies now that show that a concussive event can lead to permeability in the blood-brain barrier. It actually causes changes that occur in nerve cells and neuroproteins in the brain. Matter of fact, up to 40% of individuals may experience long-lasting neurological symptoms, including cognitive dysfunction, mood, and sleep problems. So, that's another thing to take a look at. But remember, a concussion doesn't require necessarily a loss of consciousness, right? You can have a concussion and get up and walk away. But obviously, if you're experiencing things like dizziness, ringing in the ears, headaches, fatigue, sensitivity, mood changes, appetite, sex drive, all these types of things, you can be dealing with a concussion. So obviously, you talk to your doctor and see if that may be an issue, okay? But just so you know that keeping your brain healthy, if you have a concussive event, that can also lead to a breakdown as well. So what are the nutrients that support the blood-brain barrier? So we'll go through them. We'll talk about the actual nutrients, and we'll talk about some of the supplements as well that can lead to, or that can help to support the blood-brain barrier. And the first one is melatonin. Now, we've talked about melatonin on the show many times. Research shows that it has neuroprotective effects on the blood-brain barrier, reducing inflammatory signals and supporting cognitive health. It also regulates glymphatic function. Remember the waste removal system, and the circadian rhythms that are vital to overall brain health. Remember, your brain needs regular circadian rhythms to make sure that it's removing the waste. That's why you have to sleep and try to sleep regularly to help to remove that waste. If you don't, that's a problem, because then you get a buildup of all these proteins, including amyloid beta, and you get buildup of tau proteins and things like that, which have been implicated in things like cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, so on and so forth. So melatonin, we all know that melatonin is the hormone that is secreted by the body in response to darkness. A tiny fraction of melatonin is actually secreted by the brain in response to darkness to help you sleep. The majority of the other melatonin, maybe 99% of the melatonin that's actually produced by your body, is produced in the mitochondria, and it does act as an antioxidant. Keep that in mind. Okay, there are a lot of people that take melatonin. If you've never taken melatonin, my suggestion has always been to start off small, very small doses if you're not used to it. So if you have trouble sleeping, especially as you get older, because melatonin does decline as you get older and you're having trouble sleeping, start off with 0.5 milligrams to 1 or maybe 2 milligrams and titrate up from there and see how it makes you feel. The morning is really going to show you how melatonin works for you. So that's really how you have to gauge it. Next, we have PEA, which is a critical bioactive lipid. Studies show it provides strong protection and support for the blood-brain barrier, integrity, and overall neurological function. It also helps to regulate signaling mechanisms within the blood-brain barrier that protect against stress-induced structural changes. It also inhibits, and this is the good one, the key thing here, it inhibits mast cells from releasing histamine. Okay, that is key because we all know that histamine production triggers permeability in the blood-brain barrier and the gut intestinal lining. Those of you who are dealing with allergies, whether it's seasonal allergies or food allergies, you're dealing with the secretion of histamine. So PEA actually helps and inhibits that. So it's very good for that type of thing. Now, if you want to take a look at PEA, we always recommend Wellness Resources. They have PEA Ultra, which contains 300 milligrams, and it's very, very absorbable. Next, we have butyrate. Now, what is butyrate? Butyrate is basically it's a postbiotic, and it's produced by beneficial bacteria when you're taking in a good amount of digestive fiber. Okay, so studies have shown that it promotes healthy gut microbiome, and is crucial. Well, it's a crucial mediator of neuroimmune homeostasis and the gut-brain connection, that highway that goes up and down from the gut to the brain and the brain to the gut. Okay, butyrate is key in this. So that's another one. This is why you want to make sure you're taking in enough fiber. The more fiber you take in, obviously, the more regular you're going to be, but also the more protection you have, the more butyrate you end up generating. And obviously, again, this helps with homeostasis and gut-brain connection. So if you want to take a look at butyrate, you can take a look at Wellness Resources Tributerin Plus, which contains a unique prebiotic formulation and that contains tributerin and prebiotic fibers to enhance natural butyrate production. Butyrate, by the way, is a short-chain fatty acid. Next, we have omega-3s. Now, we all know how important the omega-3s are, right? DHA plays a key role in the production and in the protecting of the blood-brain barrier. Animal studies show that DHA supplementation improves blood-brain barrier resilience by preserving tight junctions and reducing production of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as NF-kappa B and other compounds. DHA also supports gut barrier integrity. So again, it also helps with prostaglandins, bringing down the prostaglandins, which are inflammatory, helps to promote prostaglandin series 1 and 3, again, which are anti-inflammatory. So if you want to take a look at DHA, obviously you want to eat some good fatty fish during the week, but if you want to take a look at supplementation, Wellness Resources has daily DHA for the adults, kids DHA, and leptinol, which provide highly absorbable DHA. So check those out from Wellness Resources. Then we have magnesium. Now, magnesium is one of those things that I have talked about on this program ad nauseum, but it bears repeating because it is, in my opinion, a public health crisis in the fact of how deficient we are in magnesium. So, magnesium is obviously the basic mineral that is needed for hundreds of physiological functions in the body, but it helps also to maintain the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. It allows the clearing of metabolic toxins, again, like amyloid beta, out of the brain. It helps protect the endothelial lining of the blood-brain barrier and elsewhere in the circulatory system, and it helps to protect against oxidative stress. Okay, remember that magnesium is a relaxant molecule. And, basically, most people don't get at least the recommended daily allowance of 400 milligrams or more of magnesium. To me, I would start at 400 milligrams because that's how little magnesium we're getting in our diets. If you want to take a look at magnesium, Wellness Resources has Relax Mag. It's one of the customer favorites. I've taken that for many years. It actually provides 100 milligrams of highly absorbable magnesium per capsule. So if you take 2 a day, you're getting 200 milligrams of that. You know, some people need more than that depending on their needs. But magnesium, again, higher amounts may be needed for repair, recovery, stress needs, if you work out a lot, these types of things. If you're dealing with migraines, if you're dealing with headaches, muscle problems or muscle twitches and things like that. All those things are signs of magnesium deficiency. So you want to take a look at a good magnesium. Relax Mag contains magnesium glycinate, which is highly absorbable. Then we want to look at phytonutrients and antioxidants. Again, the plant phytonutrients. Obviously, the fruits and vegetables that you get from the plants, and the phytochemicals that you get from the plants, and the herbs and the spices and things like that. There's numerous antioxidants out there that help to protect the blood-brain barrier, that neutralize the reactive oxygen species, cytokines, the prostaglandins, and other compounds that do damage. And if you want to take a look at some, other key nutrients that are notable, fisetin, quercetin, grapeseed extract, blueberry extract, curcumin, ginger, vitamin C, resveratrol, lipoic acid, N-acetylcysteine, vitamin E, and glutathione, just to name a few. So those are the basic compounds that help with not only just bringing down inflammation, but helping the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. So again, you could take a look at any of these supplements from Wellness Resource. But at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to reduce the inflammation. Anything you take in that's good. Any antioxidants, any phytonutrients, their job is to make sure that they're reducing the inflammation in the body, right? So remember that oxidation is disease. Oxidation is inflammation. That is disease. So anything we take in that brings down that oxidation, that actually bring things back into homeostasis, is a good thing, right? And I'm talking about from the natural world. So all of these things that we've just talked about help with not only bringing down and regulating the inflammation that you may be dealing with that can break down the blood-brain barrier, but it also helps to keep the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. Because again, at the end of the day, as we age, we want to keep that integrity to help keep cognitive health, to help keep our memory intact, so we're not dealing with cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's as we get older. Okay? You don't have to deal with that. You don't have to deal with that. But you have to do things in order to make sure you don't have to deal with that. And the older you get, the more you have to do. So that's just an overall view of the blood-brain barrier. Okay, so again, take a look at all that that we have talked about today, and I hope that just gives you some food for thought. And and hopefully, if you do these things as you get older, you will have healthy brain aging. Next, big news in the world of health and nutrition, especially with the Make America Healthy Again movement. We're actually starting to see progress. Texas is the first state to come out with a brand new bill that's requiring mandatory labeling, nutrition standards, labeling of additives in food. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this and if this spreads. But this is great news. I'm going to play a clip on this, and then we're going to talk about the actual bill and what's in it. So check this out.
Well, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in Texas this morning, taking the lead on the state's Make America Healthy Again agenda. He'll join Governor Greg Abbott as he signs new legislation aimed at improving nutrition and protecting children's health. News Nation's Xavier Walton is live in Dallas this morning. So, Xavier, this isn't just a signing. This is also really the governor tying the state to the MAHA movement. What are you learning?
Hey, Kelly, yeah, that's exactly right. Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. This has a big link to the HHS head, RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again movement, and just might be, the blueprint of what's to come. Today's ceremonial signing is scheduled to happen later this afternoon, so in a mere matter of hours. The Texas legislation mirrors what we have seen really in nearly 36 states this year regarding synthetic food dyes, additives, and nutrition labeling. But it takes it a step further with warning labels that say a product contains an ingredient that is not recommended for human consumption in several countries, including Canada and the United Kingdom. Now, Governor Greg Abbott is positioning it as a win for public health, though critics argue the 44-item additive list includes items already banned in the U.S. and raise questions over accuracy.
Support the Make Texas Healthy Again law. I think it's wonderful in many ways. Governor Abbott and RFK Jr. are actually a bit paradoxical, like a walking conflict, because at the same time, they promote many policies and theories that can actually be detrimental to the health of Texans. I just think that we need a lot of consistency from leadership, and this is a good start, but we definitely need more in order to make Texas and America healthy.
So that clip from you talking to Dr. Frieda earlier this morning, along with imposing those additive warning labels, Texas bolstering nutrition as well as physical health programs in education and establishing an advisory committee, and with Secretary RFK Jr. joining the governor for the signing today. All of this could very well challenge national food industry norms. So it is a huge step. And just like they say here in Texas, everything is that much bigger. Kelly?
Yeah, that's right. Could it spill over to the rest of the country? It has already a bit. Xavier, thank you.
All right. So again, good news on this. And of course, there's going to be pushback to this type of thing because there always is. Whenever you're making a big push in, especially in the health and nutrition space, you're always going to get pushback on this because of all the interests that are out there, right? We've talked about it on the show many, many times. But let's take a look at the bill and see exactly what it says. So this is Senate Bill 25. And just some highlights here. There's a requirement that foods containing one of a list of 44 additives must bear a warning label, so that's good. It also requires nutrition education for healthcare professionals, including doctors, nurses, and allied health professionals. Now, that is huge. Again, another thing that I had never thought I would see in my lifetime. We know that doctors do not get trained on any meaningful nutrition when they're in medical school. But now this is actually going to be a requirement where they actually have to learn real nutrition. And they should. They should. It shouldn't be just up to the nutritionists and the functional medicine doctors and naturopaths. It should be a part of health. So let's continue. The bill states that the new curricular requirements will apply to all medical students as well as students majoring in other fields of healthcare service and must be in line with guidelines created by the Texas Nutrition Advisory Committee, which, by the way, is a brand new committee which is created by the bill. The committee also, and this is another big key here, the committee may not include an individual or an individual related to somebody who owns or controls an interest in a food, beverage, dietary supplement, or pharmaceutical manufacturing company. So right there, you eliminate conflict of interest, which has also been a big problem in the medical industry. Next, this committee that they're talking about, they're required to do some things. So we'll go over each of these bullet points here. The committee is required to examine the impact of nutrition on human health and examine the connection between ultra-processed foods, including foods containing artificial colors and food additives, and the prevalence of chronic diseases and other chronic health issues. Also, to provide an independent review of scientific studies analyzing the effects of ultra-processed foods on human health. Also, to provide education on the effects of ultra-processed food on human health, to develop and maintain dietary and nutritional guidelines based on the consensus of available scientific studies and information concerning diet and nutrition, and prepare an annual report summarizing recent scientific studies and updated nutrition guidelines incorporating those studies. This is science. And this is, more importantly, nutritional science. So this is great news on this. Now, again, at the end of the day, nutrition, as I've said, has to be a part of health, in my opinion. Nutrition is what runs your metabolism. Again, nutrition is what runs your metabolism. So if you are deficient in nutrition, you are not getting adequate nutrition, your metabolism will not run properly. I don't care how many pharmaceuticals you are on. And in my opinion, that is health. Nutrition, lifestyle, all that is health. Not being on a pharmaceutical, because remember, the symptom that you have or the quote unquote disease that you have is not because of a lack of a pharmaceutical, but it can be because of a lack of nutrition. That's just the way it is. So, those of you who know my story, I've talked about my story many times. This is actually why I'm here, because I had so many debilitating issues when I was a kid, because I ate terribly. I didn't, I exercised. I did always work out, but I ate terribly. And I thought that if I exercised, it would be fine. Well, no, it wasn't, because I was extremely deficient in a lot of things. I was on antibiotics. I had allergies up the wazoo. I had chronic bronchitis. I had chronic sinus infections. I had chronic back problems. I had chronic stomach issues. And I was heading down a very bad path. And if I had not discovered nutrition, if I had not changed my life in that way, I wouldn't be doing the show. And who knows what condition I would be in today. Who knows? And now I'm not the smartest, tool in the toolbox. I can tell you that. But I was smart enough to figure it out. And if I can figure it out, you guys can figure it out. Remember, I didn't have me, or I didn't have a lot of guys like me at that time to show me this, right? So my job here is to give you my experiences, show you what I went through, show you what I've helped other people do, and then you guys can decide if it's good for you. Not everything is going to be good for you. Not everything is going to work exactly the way it worked with me. And that's okay, because we're all different. We all have a different metabolism. We all come to the table with different things. But if you could even start that process, take the responsibility yourself. Don't wait for Maha. Don't wait for any of these things that go on. I talk about it all the time. Take the responsibility. Meet your doctor at least halfway if you're on a pharmaceutical. Show him that you can change your lifestyle. I'm telling you, if you do these things, you will start to see major positive changes in your health. It's that simple. And nutrition is a big part of this. So I hope that this starts to spread out. I commend Governor Abbott on being the leader in this space here and starting to do this. It's going to be interesting to see if it starts to branch out into some of the other states, but we shall see. But at the end of the day, at least this is, again, a step in the right direction. Because again, like I said in the podcast that I talked about a while back, I said, what if the health industry, what if doctors were actually trained in nutrition? How would it change the health industry? Now, it's not going to change the health industry today. You're not going to see these changes today. You're going to see these changes down the line. Our kids and grandkids are the ones that are going to reap the rewards of these changes if they are implemented properly. So that's a good thing, because at least we know that when we're no longer here, that if this kind of trend continues, that our kids and grandkids will actually have a good shot of leading healthier lives and will actually start to outlive us again. Because right now they're not. And that's because our children are more obese than anybody else, and our children are having all different types of conditions because of the ultra-processed food more than anybody else in the world right now. So, again, hopefully this starts to spread. So we shall see. And, of course, I will keep you guys up to date, as I always do on this, because I got to keep you guys in the know. All right, guys, so I want to thank you again for joining me this week. It's always a pleasure and an honor to bring you this information. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Make sure you take care of each other. And as always, control your health. I will see you next time.